Guys, welcome to an interesting video here. We're going to be doing a Q&A. I got a full list of questions that I got from fans, family, friends, comments, you name it, and we're going to rip through them all today. We've got 100 Q&A we're going to be firing through, so hope you guys get a ton of knowledge from all of the insight from these questions. Enjoy. What was your biggest failure and what did you learn from it? That's pretty deep. I would say my biggest failure was in college, and it was not fully committing to my career in football. I think, in 8th grade, high school, I was so committed and I believed that I was making it to the NFL. And I think once I got to college and started thinking about business and all these different things, I didn't commit anymore. And to me, that was my biggest failure. What's one decision you wish you could take back? And bear with me as I got to think about some of these. Let's see. I would take back some of the things that I've said to some people. I think at times anger and immaturity has gotten me to a place where I've said some crucial things, and once things are said, they can't be taken back. How did you overcome your toughest challenge? When it comes to challenges, the only way you could break through them is just going right through. And any type of challenge, you've got to just stay dedicated to why you started anything in the first place. So getting back to your why is the easiest way for me to overcome any tough challenges. What was your aha moment in your career or life? The aha moment was when I started to see people older than me or even people the same age on the same playing field. And that was the aha moment that you've got every resource that you need and you just need to commit and dive deep and execute because everything is there for you. And you just got to go out and take it. What habits helped you grow the most? Working out, staying really on top of your nutrition, and being authentic. Those are the three that's helped me a lot with the habits. If you could stay true to your health and then you could be authentic, that's going to help you grow. How do you handle criticism or negativity? Just don't let it faze you. There's going to be so much outreach from people hitting you with negative comments, with criticism, and the negative stuff, you just got to brush off your shoulder. The criticism, you've got to listen to it. You got to take it and you got to learn from it, but don't let it steer you. What's the biggest risk you've ever taken? Being an entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur is always going to be the biggest risk because there's nobody to guide you. There's nobody to hold your hand. There's nobody that's going to tell you that you're doing right or wrong. There's nobody that's going to assist you. The biggest risk is being an entrepreneur, being your own boss, being your own owner. Because now it's not like you have a 40-hour work week. You're on 24/7 every single day, and it's up to you to succeed. How do you stay motivated during hard times? I'll tell you, during some of the hardest times of my life, the only way I was able to get motivated was just by taking steps forward. Motivation just doesn't come. You have to put the one foot in front of the other. And as you start getting momentum, motivation is going to start to come your way. And then once it's there, you got to run with it. What advice would you give your younger self? Man, start sooner with a lot of your ideas. I feel like as a kid and as a young adult, I've had a ton of ideas on how to grow things, how to build things, concepts, inventions, and they stayed an idea for so long. And if I could give any advice to my younger self was, man, when you have those ideas, just plant the seed and go. And let it build. You'll figure it out on the way. What's one thing you wish you knew before starting your journey? I've done a few journeys, so let's coordinate to my entrepreneurship journey. I would have probably reached out to more mentors right from the start and have asked their opinions on the stuff that they ran into. I wouldn't ask them exactly the routes to take, but I would ask some certain things to avoid to help with the journey. How do you define success for yourself? To me, success comes from when you are a diverse individual. You are hitting all of the areas of your life to a maximum ability. And that to me is what, is success. It's not just if you're super wealthy or rich. It's not if you're just super jacked. It's not if you're just super nice. It's not if you look good. Success comes when you're hitting all those areas and you put them all together and you package them in a way that people will appreciate and want to emulate. That's to me what success is. What's the hardest lesson you've had to learn? Pretty similar to the previous questions. Hardest lesson, actually no, let's redo this. What's the hardest lesson you've had to learn? How to love I would say is the hardest lesson. How to love your spouse or a partner, how to love a friend, how to love a concept, how to love your business. That's a hard thing because there's positive times and there's negative times. There's that roller coaster when it comes to a relationship. And man, that is a hard thing to master. What mistakes do beginners most often make in your industry? I would say that they pay so much attention to culture and the people around them, and they just copy. And you don't ever want to be a copycat. You want to learn from the people around you, but you want to duplicate and not replicate. You want to create your own concepts. So learn investing, learn real estate, learn crypto from people, but trailblaze your own path. How do you manage stress and avoid burnout? You're not going to avoid stress, and you're definitely not going to avoid burning out. That's just how it is. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you got to accept. So how about this? Practice acceptance, because you're going to get tired. You got to find a way to push through it, man. It's the best answer I could give about that one. Let's see. How was your first big win? Or I'm sorry. What was your first big win and how did it change you? I would say my first big win was when I was starting doing some marketing for companies. And, I'd got a company to believe in me as a young videographer when I first got out of college, and they took a chance on me. And I did well right from the start, but I didn't realize what type of client I had. I actually had a huge client paying top dollar. I just didn't know it at the time because it was one of my first gigs. And just out of not knowing, I screwed it up. Whereas now, after the fact, man, I should have nurtured that one. What's one belief that changed your mindset? Let's see. What's one belief that changed your mindset? Man, that's a tough question. What's one belief that changed your mindset? The belief that you can change your mindset every single day, and it can improve and it can evolve. And where your mind is last week doesn't have to be where your mind is today. And I believe that, man, like your opinions that you had, you got to stick with them. I was a believer in crypto 5 or 6 years ago. And as it started to tank down, I was like, man, like, I don't think this is it. My mindset started to change. I started to check out some more things. And what it did was, it didn't prove that I was wrong or right or anything. All it did was just adjust my mindset to see the clearer picture. So hopefully that answers it. How do you stay consistent with your work? The boring answer is your calendar. You got to block out 15-minute blocks across the whole day. You got to be a student of your calendar. That's the boring answer. Fun answer is you got to love the journey. You got to love being a part of this and building something that is going to be remembered one day, and that's what excites me, is building things and doing things that, my grandkids will be able to be a part of in a small glimpse. That excites me. So do something you love. What's a failure story you've never shared before? Damn, that means I got to share it. Man, being a quarterback, I lost my position in high school like 2 times, at one high school, then at the next, then in college. Those stories you don't really share too much to people when you're talking to them and they know you from your background. That's not always the fun story, to say, hey, you were a backup and you couldn't win. You couldn't, be better than somebody else that has the same amount of opportunity as you. That was a tough one for me, to share. When you reach out or meet up with people and they're like, hey, how's football going? Oh, fantastic. We're 9-0. We're 10-0. We're going to the playoffs. And then all of a sudden they're like, wow, but you don't tell them that, well, I'm actually the second string. That's, I would say that was a failure that I probably didn't share to a lot of people. How do you set goals that actually get done? To me, it's like notes, tasks, appointments. If you have anything that needs to get done, you're going to need to set notes, and that's going to be a ledger for you to remind you of what's going on. Then you're going to have to set tasks from one stage to the next. Let's say if you have to set up an appointment, what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to call, text, and email them. That would be your task. And then appointments. You got to set appointments for yourself, for the people, for the events, and so on. So that's how you're going to set things and accomplish your goals and actually get them all done. What role has mentorship played in your growth? I would say so far, small glimpse, because I really haven't put myself into too many mentorship groups or got in touch with too many mentors. I've paid for one specifically to teach me Section 8 and real estate investing. And what I found with doing that was it was more just a clarification of everything that I knew was correct. And it did light a fire underneath my butt and got me started and moving a little bit quicker. But if you're somebody that learns and you're constantly learning, you probably know the answers. And all it really comes down to is executing. So reach out to mentors if you don't have the knowledge. Reach out to mentors if you don't have the resources. But at this point, if you've got enough, you're never going to be, perfect. You're never going to be truly the master. You're always got to be a student, but you can't just always be a student. You can't always be learning. At some point, you got to start teaching. At some point, you got to be the expert. Oh, all right. So those were kind of a bit about my journey and lessons. Now we're going to get into specifically advice for beginners. What's the best way to get started in your field? Whether you're in investing, real estate, software, anything, the best way to get started is to plant the seed, to start something. Write it down on a piece of paper. Get it into a Google sheet. Talk about it with somebody. Hop on a podcast. Start something. From there, you just got to dive in the deep end. And just like Dwayne on my last podcast, I'm going to link it right here. He said sometimes things got to get a little bit sloppy. How do you build confidence from scratch? It's right there. It comes from scratch, and you got to put it all together. Just like when you're making a meal. You're making a pizza or anything from scratch. What do you need? You're going to need the dough. You're going to need the flour. You're going to need the sausage. You're going to need the pepperoni. And you got to put it together, right? Confidence comes from you putting all your skill sets together. If you practice public speaking, if you practice body language, if you practice pronunciation, if you practice looks maxing, you're going to be a confident person. So it's all about putting the recipe together. That's what's going to make you confident. What should a beginner absolutely avoid? I think beginners should avoid drugs, alcohol, partying. If you could avoid those, it's going to keep you on track for actually getting things done and being around the right people. I'll add one more. Avoid people that are pulling you down or in the wrong direction. Those people are never going to help you, and that could be your friends, it could be your family. And it's a lot harder when it's your family, but guess what? You could still push them all to the curb. God even says so. How do you handle self-doubt when starting out? Ooh, it's going to come. You're going to have a lot of self-doubt with your business idea, with your investments, the decisions you're making, everything like that. If you did the research, if you studied right, you're going to be fine. Think of it, when you were back in school, when you were going and taking an exam, the ones that you studied for, that you did all the preparation for, flashcards, notes, everything, those were always going to be the exams you did best on. It's always the ones where you stayed up till 5 a.m. bullshitting, playing GTA. Those are going to be the ones where you're not necessarily prepared for. So yeah. What are 3 things you wish you had done differently in the beginning? 3 things that I wish I would have done differently in the beginning was start off with value. Anything that I'm doing is how much value can somebody get from this? How long is it going to take for this to turn out? Is this going to take me a week to get done, 6 months, a year? And then I would say having the confidence to go all in. And if you could put all those 3 together, you got a recipe for success. How important is networking and how do you do it right? I think it's super important. Maybe not as important as I originally thought. Years ago, I was super big on LinkedIn, still am, but each week I was so focused on just getting connections, but I wasn't doing anything with them. I wasn't messaging them, wasn't reaching out. There was nothing from it. There was no output. So networking is super important. But if you have a contact list of 5,000 people and you don't call a single person, you have a 0% chance of them picking up. How do you stay focused when overwhelmed? I'll give you one of my favorite tips, and got it from a neuroscientist. It's called the double inhale. You're going to inhale as long as you can through your nose. And once you feel like your lungs are full, you're going to get a little bit more in. And that's going to be your second inhale. And then you'll exhale. I'll give you an example. What that does, it's a sigh. Your body does it naturally when you're stressed or overwhelmed. So I do it manually throughout the day. It helps out. Try it out. Let's see. What daily routine do you recommend for beginners? A notepad. My mom got me a great one. It was like, I'm forgetting what exactly it said on it. I still have it. But a notepad. And just sit down right in the morning. Write down everything you got to get done. Do the ones that are extremely hard first, then the ones after. And that's going to help out a lot. How do you stay curious and keep learning? This is something that I I would say I'm super good at. I'm always curious. Anytime people are talking about a certain topic, even if it's something I have absolutely no knowledge in, I'm always kind of sitting there quiet, just thinking about what they're speaking about and how I could gain some type of edge from it. And it could be anything. One of my buddies, Greg, who's a nurse, could be talking about biology, and somehow what he said, I twist into a way that I could use. Or I'm talking with somebody who's works at a funeral home, and he's talking about some type of, how he does the funerals, because funerals are essentially events, and it's like you could take anything from anyone. So, you got to stay curious and learning, podcasts, books. There's so much. Just freaking learn it all, man. How do you find your niche or passion? It's going to come to you with time. Originally my passion was sports, and, then that led to business, and now it's more so leading to legacy, and that's just happens with time and effort and just putting the work in and keep trying things and throwing things at the wall. And you're going to see like, damn, like that one didn't stick, but I enjoyed throwing it. And you're going to do one, you're going to throw it at the wall and it stuck, but you're like, I didn't even like to do that. For example, real estate for me. Real estate and rentals are a game that is not fun to me. But guess what? I know part of the game of Monopoly is you need to own land and own properties to be a winner. You don't want to just go around and collect 200. So that's one of the things that you still got to do some things that you may not like. But you got to lean into your passions and the things that you love so you could enjoy, your journey. How important is failure in the learning process? 100% more important than winning. Every single time I've lost, it's taught me a lesson that allows me to win. And it happens every single time. And sometimes now when I do get failures or something wrong happens, I start laughing and I'll thank God and be like, you know what? Thank you for that, because I know coming right around the corner is something good and something I'm going to learn from, and most likely is going to be my next win. What books or resources helped you most early on? Atomic Habits, Buy Back Your Time. Actually, one of my first books from college was What a Beautiful Question. Thought it was a stupid, project to do right in college, waste of time. Then I realized, like, man, asking questions is so important. And you notice that kids are the best at asking questions. My little cousin George, man, he'll ask you a million questions in 30 seconds. But guess what? He is learning fast, and he's getting it from a 27-year-old. So asking questions are going to be, could be a key factor for you. If you're one that's like shy, you don't talk much, you don't have to talk, because talking is not necessarily, questioning. They're two different things. Like A and B conversation, like, you may not want to give somebody your, expertise, because maybe you don't feel like you're an expert in that space. But guess what? The one thing you could do is ask questions, and that's going to help a lot. How do you deal with comparison to others? I would say it's something I'm practicing, but it's, just don't put yourself on the same level as them. Don't even be on the same chessboard. Don't even be in the same world. And then you'd have nothing to compare against you. I could be, in the same industries, but I could be attacking it at a whole different angle. And then there's nothing to compare to. You're not me. You're not Alec Fidan. There's no way. And although we may have similar backgrounds, may have been raised the same way, you might also be Greek, but I'm not comparing myself to you. What's a common trap beginners fall into? Comparison. How long does it usually take to see results? 24 hours. If you do something, if you plant a seed, it can grow in 24 hours. There's some seeds, though, that don't shine for 6 months, a year, 3 years. How about 5 years, 6 years? How about 15 years? Look up at some small business owners that are in their business now for years 16, 17, 18, and they haven't grown. They're still sticking into it because they know one day it's going to happen, because they're putting in the work every single day. They're making themselves better. They're working on their systems, their operations, and it's bound to happen. So what mindset shifts are necessary for success? The number one, and I may only give you one, is dreaming big. Because being around small thinkers is going to shut you down. And I used to have really good ideas, but man, they still weren't big enough as they are now. The ideas that I had, 4 or 5 years ago, I was sitting on them last night, growing them. And I'm like, man, I thought these were huge back then. And now they're 10 times bigger. So just keep thinking larger. Even when you think it's crazy, take it to the next level, because eventually as you keep striding forward, you're going to figure things out and it's no longer going to feel crazy and it's just going to be normal. How do you balance learning versus doing? I usually just do a 50-50 split. I'll go and learn something and then I go and do. For example, yesterday we're working on onboarding new hires, something that's brand new to me. I have a pretty good stance on recruiting, getting the leads, getting the hires, and then doing the hiring. But then I was like, man, I got to get people into our systems and then also have to do it in a way where it doesn't compromise the company. So that was new for me. So what did I do? Hopped instantly right into chat, instantly right into YouTube. Took me about 2 hours. I got the knowledge that I needed. Boom, right back onto the computer, started executing, downloading those softwares, putting it all together. And now we're on just 1 day later. And now we have 5 onboarding coordinators that are hiring all our hiring managers now and everybody else, just from 1 day of learning and executing. So I say just make it a 50-50 split. It's going to be the easiest way. If you're going to study for an hour, then you got to execute for an hour. If you want to study a concept for 10 hours long, you want to read an entire book, you better go put that. If it took you 10 hours to read that book, you better go put 10 hours of executing from what you learned in that. What's the best piece of advice you've received? You've got everything you need. And once you know that, you could have $0 in your checking account. You could be homeless. You could be sleeping in your car. You could have tons of debt. And guess what? I'll still tell you, you got everything you need. Because you got somebody that's got your back through it all. And depending on your religious background, you'll know who I'm talking about. How do you measure progress when it feels slow? I could tell you that when things are slow and you feel like they're just coming to a point where, man, like I'm just not seeing any progress anymore. I'm telling you, that is the point that you keep pushing. That is the point where finally you're digging, and you're just one stroke away from hitting that gold. And that's usually when people stop. So when you feel like, man, things are just slow down, but you're still working, you're putting all the effort in, you're doing everything you possibly need to do, just make it one more day because you got everything you need. What's the biggest myth about your industry? Let's just talk about the crypto industry. I think one of the biggest myths is that crypto is digital money and that's all it is. I'll tell you now that crypto is going to be what either puts me on the map or what allows my family to remember me generations to come. And me saying that means you should probably go put an hour of studying into crypto and then go execute for an hour. The biggest myth is that crypto is just digital money. It's way more than that. All right, here you go. We're going to switch into a little bit more personal insight here. What motivates me every single day? The fact that I have the opportunity to change my family's legacy. My grandpa came from Greece. He lived in a stone house. You should see it. It's crazy. Maybe I'll find a photo and I could pop it up here. Came here, started a family, large Greek family now, and we're all pretty successful. That's crazy to me. And my dad's side, Albanian side, came from Albania, Turkey, we don't know exactly where. Started a family. But it's going to come a point where things start to dissolve. If nobody's going to take those strides forward, your legacy ends. And I have the opportunity to rewrite the Fidan family. And that every single day motivates me because I have future kids on the way, a future wife on the way, and I have a name to respect, to grow, and for people to remember. How do you start your mornings? Start my mornings by saying what's up to my dog, giving her a little scratch behind the ear. I go get some water, and then usually I just get right into it. Hop on the computer, and what are the immediate tasks that need to be done ASAP? And then I get to my health, whether that's my supplements, getting to the gym, getting things going. You want to stay wound up all day. Anybody that tells you to like calm down, relax, go tell them, why would I want to be calm and relaxed? I'm trying to build something that matters here. And your morning is going to set the tone for that entire day. Wake up and just get rolling. Don't sit around on your phone for 2-3 hours, because then your whole day is going to be like that. It's going to be just slow and monotonous. When you're up, you don't have to start on anything crucial, but just get going. What's your biggest fear? Besides like drowning and something crazy like that and burning, like I don't know. I mean, biggest fear is like I try and remove fear. I mean, the biggest fear is death, you know? And, you know, at that point now I saw death firsthand. To be honest, I'm not too scared of it anymore. I'm actually starting to welcome it, you know? So I'd say that my biggest fear is, you know, being a failure, you know, and like 30 years from now, not executing on anything that I'm telling you guys I'm going to do. That's what scares me. How do you celebrate success? You pop a champagne bottle, you smoke a cigar, you go to your nice favorite dinner, or you start your next project. You take the next stride, you go make things bigger. To me, when I hit success and I want to celebrate, I'm so motivated in those moments because you finally got to win that, dude, it's time to compound. It's time to take this to the next level. You know, you hit this objective, the game's not finished. There's a lot more to go. What's your favorite failure story? You know, let's see. Not being competitive at a younger age. I remember just being young. I was super athletic, and there would still be times where like I'd be playing like pickup basketball in my backyard with my buddies. And I know all I had to do, I could flip a switch and I could play better than them and I could win. And I wouldn't, because I just wanted to have a good time. If I was up by 2 points, I'd start slowing down just to let my buddies back into the game. And I noticed I would do that a lot in my career with all sports. And usually when it was just recreation or exhibition, you know, obviously when the game was on the line, I would try my absolute hardest. But I would reflect on times where there were still moments where like, man, like you could have ran a little bit harder. You know, you probably could have gotten a little bit angrier and, you know, got in the end zone. There was a lot of times where I could have been more competitive, and I think I would have gotten a little bit further in my career as far as sports. What's one habit you wish you could break? Smoking weed, I would say, is one of my habits that I definitely want to break. I've been smoking since I was like 14 years old, and consistently, I would say, besides times in college, we had to stop for playoffs because we would get drug tested. And that's a habit of mine that I think it was just like once it started, and I wasn't a big drinker. So I was like, oh, well, while everybody's drinking, I'm just going to smoke because that's a better option. You know, while everybody's getting drunk and can't drive, I could drive. I could go and do anything. But as the years have gone on, I mean, shit, I've been smoking for 13 years now. I couldn't even imagine what these lungs look like inside. So that's a habit that I'm working on breaking, and it's going to be my goal by the end of this year to, if it's not fully shut down, it's going to be very, very, very minimal. How do you deal with loneliness or isolation in your work? If you can't be okay with being lonely and isolated while you're working, just don't be an entrepreneur. And that's fine. You know, anybody that's watching this, if you're not an entrepreneur, that doesn't mean to go to a different channel or to find somebody else. You're going to gain still a lot of knowledge from me because entrepreneurs are very diverse. But when you're lonely and you're isolated, those are the times where, man, like you get ahead, you know, and because there's no distractions. You don't have any other team members looking over your shoulder, asking you to go to lunch, you know, family members, you know. I'd say my distraction right now is my dog. You know, it'd just be me at the office with her, and all of a sudden she comes up, she's bringing me a toy. You know, just the slightest bit of distraction, notifications on your phone. So don't look at it as a bad thing. When you're by yourself, use that to your advantage. What role does discipline play in your life? I mean, I didn't get to this point without being disciplined. Disciplined in fitness, in sports, in education, in everything. You know, when you have a lot of cousins and you're all around the same age and you got a lot of friends, and you guys are all pushing together, you know, you got to stay disciplined to your craft because your friends are going to surpass you, your family's going to surpass you, and things like that. So if you want to keep moving forward, you got to be disciplined in everything. And there's absolutely no way you'll succeed in anything without being disciplined. How do you balance work and personal life? You don't. To me, I work way more than personal life. But here's one thing I won't do is I will never sacrifice my personal life for my work. And that was when I made the switch to be a full-time entrepreneur now, is because at any point I could be exactly where I want to be, do what I want to do, talk to whoever I want to talk to, and that's freedom. And I will never sacrifice that for a dollar, for a title, or anything. I gave myself a 2,000% raise, right, Sarasani? What's a misconception people have about you? I've met some people, and their usual first impression of me is that I'm kind of like that jock, fuckboy type of person. And then as they meet me and actually have a conversation, they're like, holy shit, I was completely wrong. You're chill. And I think I give that approach very easily to people because I'm a listener. I don't talk a lot and I ask a lot of questions. So, you know, when people see my stuff online, that's what their first impression is like, oh, this guy is all full of himself because all he does is post himself and all that. It's like, but who am I doing it for? I'm not doing it for myself. I'm doing it for you guys. And then once people see that, you know, they kind of usually change their perspective. Damn, we're 40 minutes in. Holy shit. Only halfway through. I might just pick out some specific questions. We might make this 50 questions. Up to 100 questions with Alec. Oh, man. I don't want to miss and not film the other stuff now. It's all right. We'll figure it out. Here we go. How do you handle rejection? Rejection from a girl, rejection from a job, rejection from Shaq. Just pick up the ball and start dribbling again. I mean, shoot again. That's all you got to do. Get rejected. Find out, why did I get rejected? There's got to be some type of reason, and learn from it. Take the next step. What's your biggest personal strength? My personal strength is my ability to be persistent and to keep moving forward. And when I have something on my mind, I never want to stop until it's fulfilled. It's definitely one of my biggest strengths. What's your biggest weakness? My biggest weakness right now is going to be still teetering with an average lifestyle and not fully being who I want to be. Wanting to be a billionaire, wanting to live these lifestyles. I'm still teetering with what it is in my old life. Who has influenced you the most? My grandparents and my parents, without a doubt. My grandparents taught me lessons on what it's like to raise a family and to do it with morals. My parents taught me lessons that are very specific on being a good son and at being a man. And, you know, I'm going to take all of those to the grave. How do you stay creative? By putting yourself into creative roles and positions. You need to do art. You got to put yourself in making videos and being more right-brained. If you're constantly doing left-brain tasks, there's no way you're going to start being creative because all you're thinking is analytical. So you literally have to make that switch and put yourself to do creative things. What's your biggest distraction and how do you overcome it? My distraction right now is wanting to be in multiple places at the same time, you know, trying to reach out to a friend here, staying in contact, a friend over here in a completely different state, staying in touch with my family, while also trying to grow myself, my companies, all that. And realizing that it's not possible to do all of that, and that if I don't, that it's fine. So that's something I'm definitely working on. How do you push through when you want to quit? If you quit, there's a 0% chance of you succeeding. When I was young and I was playing baseball, I wanted to quit so bad. And God bless my mom's soul. I miss her so much. But she told me, just stick it out for one more game. You're not a quitter. And what did I do? My next at bat, I blast a ball to left center field. I think the bases were loaded. I think I got a triple, so 3 runs came in. I'm on third base. I think I end up stealing home or something like that. We end up taking the lead and winning the game. I ended up quitting baseball the next season. But what I did was I finished that season out because I wasn't a quitter. But I realized that maybe this isn't the sport for me at this point. You know, the pitches are coming a little bit too fast. I need to get focused really good in football. And I made a very conscious decision to just steer my direction. But can never be a quitter. What's one thing you do every day without fail? I call my friends almost every single day, and I'll just, you know, I go down the list. I'll call them or FaceTime them, and if they don't pick up, it's all good. But at least I try to contact them and to get in touch, because if you don't have your friends, you know, you're always going to have your family. But the friends have a certain part in your life that they fill, and they're busy. They've got careers. They got a lot going on. You got to be the one to reach out to them. Even when you don't feel like they might not answer or they don't want to, just keep doing it every single day. How do you keep improving yourself? By setting standards and then achieving them, breaking through them, and then setting new ones. I'll set a goal, and I'm going to work my ass off to hit that goal. And then you got to set a new goal. You set the bar. Sometimes I set the bar low, so then I could smash it. But sometimes I set it so high that maybe in my entire lifetime, I'm never going to reach that. But if I even come damn near close, I probably got pretty far. What advice would you give someone who wants to pivot careers? Just do it. What are you waiting on? The perfect time? If you have an opportunity to switch careers, let's say make the same amount of money, and you're now in a position that you enjoy, it's a no-brainer. If you're making more money, ultimately a no-brainer. If you are in a situation that you're just not comfortable with, and even if you've been doing it for 7 years, 10 years, you've invested so much time and effort, let's say you've built up all of this, you've got a book, you know, it's like, but you're like, man, I want to do my own thing. Just do it, man. You're going to catch back up. I promise. I promise. Here we go. Deeper reflection. It's about to get deep and we're going to move quickly. How has your mindset evolved over the years? It's just gotten better and more efficient. And I would say at just a higher frequency. My mindset thinks differently compared to most people. I see different avenues, different paths that most people don't. And the only way I do that is just by overanalyzing. And I know that's a lot with Aquarius type people. I don't know. What's something you still struggle with? My mom's passing, my grandma's passing, you know, my dog passing, that stuff, you know, struggles come to me every single day with that shit. And I don't know if it'll ever get better. You know, to be honest, it's fine because at least I think about them every day, you know, so I appreciate that. What's your biggest regret? You know, you can't have regrets, you know, and, but if I had to, you know, pinpoint one, man, it was like have a better relationship with my dad. You know, despite things happening, he brought me into this world and he's all I got as far as parents left. So my regret is not mending that relationship. How do you practice self-care? You do it on a daily basis and you're going to get better at it. You know, there was a while where I was, you know, I just wasn't working out. I wasn't taking my vitamins. I wasn't brushing my teeth as often. I wasn't, you know, taking care of my hair. And then you start to realize that most of these things, specifically with self-care, you're going to have for your entire life. This body is the same body that you're going to have when you're 80 years old. And I started hearing stories about, you know, especially older gentlemen, you know, they get into these things where they can't pee anymore. They can't do these things. And it's like, damn, like you really got to take care of your body. And physically for sure, but mentally now, when we're talking mental self-care, those are usually conversations that you just have within prayer, meditation, and maybe some psychedelics. What's a belief you held that you changed? Skip. How do you define happiness? I define happiness by being in a place where you can be authentic. You know, when you're hanging out with a friend and you could just be yourself because you're authentic, now you're in a place where you're happy. It's not just like on a beach in Cancun, you know, because you could be there, have tons of money, but you got nobody around you. You know, might not be too happy. You could be on a roller coaster, Raging Bull, one of my favorite rides. But you look to your left and your right, and you're riding it by yourself, not too happy. So I would say your environment. You know what? I think we're going to put a pause on this segment. Might come back so I don't miss the other stuff. And we'll go from there. But if not, if it's the end, I'm going to give a little outro. All right, so 100 questions was a little tough to get through. So guess what? There's going to be a part 2 now. If you like this, please drop some more questions into the comments. I'll add them to the next video. And if you want to see more from my content, please subscribe. Every single subscription that I get, the Fidan Foundation donates $1 for every subscription. So even if you don't like me, help somebody out. Make sure to like the video, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you guys in the next one. If you haven't got the moment, check out these videos here or check out my profile. See you guys in the next one. All right, that was, we're going to do, a lot of those questions kind of did the segments I was thinking, but the one I want to do is at least a message to my future self. So we're going to do that. No, brother, I'm all good. Let it roll.
You want me to cut the recording or keep it one long?
Would you be able to, because then it'll be just like 2 separate files that you send? Yeah, let's start a new one so then I could, I don't have to go and search.